They call it a war on women. And as a woman, I'm here to tell you the Democrats are off base. And as Americans look a little deeper into these issues, what they see is not that Republicans are trying to undermine women's health. What they see is that Democrats are trying to scare American women.
Wow. Welcome back to Hardball. That was my next guest, Republican Congresswoman from Washington State, McMorris Rodgers. But just this Sunday, Senator John McCain had a different take. Let's listen to him.
Do you think that there is something of a war on women among Republicans?
I think we have to fix that. I think that there is a perception out there because of the way that this whole contraception issue played out. We need to get off of that issue, in my view. I think we ought to respect the right of women to make choices in their lives and make that clear and get back on to what the American people really care about, jobs and the economy.
Well, women, the 2012 vote and access to health care. How will this affect elections on the national and state levels this year? Joining me now is Illinois Lieutenant Governor Sheila Simon and U.S. Congresswoman McMorris Rodgers, Vice Chair of the House Republican Conference. Thank you both for joining me. Let's hear right now. We have a couple points here. Congresswoman, what do you make of it in Virginia? By the way, Congresswoman, what do you make of the charge that Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker, is making in her new fundraising letter that there is, in fact, a war on women being waged by the Republicans?
The reality is, in 2010, the Republicans won the women's vote. And the Democrats know that in order to win the presidency, in order to win the seats in the House and the Senate, that they have to scare women, that they have to win the women's vote, and they're trying to scare women by manufacturing this war on women to really distract American women as well as Americans in general of the real issues. And the real issues are that President Obama's policies are failing, whether it's his economic policies, his health care policies, or the debt that he's leaving to our children and grandchildren.
Governor Simon, your view on this. Is it fair to accuse the Republicans of a war on women, or is that too strong?
I don't know if it's too strong. There's certainly a lot of skirmishes going on, though, and what scares us is those attacks on our basic constitutional rights. In Virginia, in other states across the country, we want to protect those basic constitutional rights that we have grown to depend on.
Well, let's look at a case in point. In Virginia, where a law requiring a woman to have a mandatory ultrasound before an abortion, a new poll shows voters disagree. By a huge 51-point margin, Virginia voters say government should not make laws which try to convince women seeking an abortion to change their minds. Congresswoman, where are you on that poll? Are you with the 72 or the 21?
I'm here to say that the polls are showing that the debate that's been in Congress has been over the right of conscience, and on those polls, the American people are with the Republican position, and that Obama's approval rating among women is at a record low. It's at 41%. I believe that when women look at these issues a little deeper, that they see that it is not about any kind of war on women by the Republicans.
Well,
it's really
let's get below the rhetoric. Let's get below the rhetoric then. Okay, I'll ask you the question that they put to the women voting in Virginia. Should the government try to discourage a woman who shows up at an abortion clinic to have the procedure? Should there be steps taken at that point to discourage her from going ahead? What's your principled answer?
I would say, that is not the issue that's on the forefront of the voters' minds.
Well, what's your position on that issue?
Well, it is an example of where I believe that there's an effort underway by the Democrats to really distract Americans from the real issues, which are it's the economy, it's health care, it's the debt that we're passing on to the next generation.
Well, why are state legislatures doing all this stuff in an election year for president? You say a distraction. Fair enough. Who's causing the distraction? Why are these Republican-led legislatures, as in Virginia, pushing this social legislation, which is so controversial, in the midst of a presidential election? They shouldn't be doing it, but they are. What's your position?
I would say in Washington State, there's a social agenda being driven by the Democrat legislature. They passed gay marriage, which is going to be on the ballot this fall, and they're working on other pieces of a social agenda. I'm here to say it's all a distraction from the real issues that are facing Americans, and we need to get back to the debate over economy and jobs, health care. Women make 85% of the health care decisions in this country for themselves, their families, and they are fearful.
I agree.
The real scary part is that the federal government might step in and start making their health care decisions.
Well, I think health care really is the question that we're talking about here. And as the Congresswoman mentioned, it's women making decisions about health care. That's where we're getting scared in Virginia and other states that are proposing these laws that are really trying to peel away at our constitutional rights.
Just to respond to the Congresswoman, I want to give you a list now. Over the past decade, just the past decade, the number of states that are hostile to abortion, for example, defined as having enacted 4 or more provisions that have put up a hurdle for women seeking seeking one, has doubled. Here's just a sample of what's happening in various states. In Arizona, which has a series of bills right now, in the works right now, that would limit abortion access, a Republican representative sent this email, quote, "Personally, I'd like to make a law that mandates a woman watch an abortion being performed prior to having a surgical procedure." In Utah, the Republican governor just signed a law extending the waiting period for women seeking abortions from 24 hours to 72 hours. That's 3 days. In Tennessee today, a bill that would have mandated publication of information identifying abortion providers, doctors, and possibly their patients was amended to strip those requirements, perhaps in reaction to the national criticism. All these state legislatures have been busy bees out there pushing this stuff, adding hurdles to this kind of decision by a woman. And my question to you is it the Democrats raising the issues, these social concerns you say are distracting, or is it conservative legislatures led by Republicans?
You know, I'm a member of Congress. I serve in Congress. The House released its budget yesterday, and the criticism that came immediately from the Democrat women in the House was that they said it was anti-woman. You know, that's where I say this is a distraction from the real issues. The reality is the Republicans won the women's vote in 2010, and the Democrats know that they have to win the women's vote, and that they are scared. These are scare tactics to scare women.
But
and
whose tactics are they?
Abortion.
But I'm just asking you, whose tactics are you? Say they're Democratic tactics. How did Democrats get Republican legislators to make these proposals? How tricky are they, these Democrats? They get the Virginia legislation to bring up all this stuff on abortion. They get the Santorum to talk up contraception. These Democrats are ventriloquists. How do they get the Republicans to say all this stuff? They're really masterful, I'd say. I know I'm being sarcastic, but you know the evidence here is a lot of right-wing social activists in your party are giving the Democrats catnip here, right?
And there's a lot of left-wing social activists that are also pushing their agenda in various legislatures and here in Congress. The same thing. What I'm here to say is that when it comes to women right now, 2 out of 3 businesses are being started by women. They understand firsthand the challenges that they face in trying to start a business, grow a business, the regulatory nightmare because of the federal government that makes it harder and harder, the tax burden. Women make the health care decisions, and they don't like the idea of the federal government making these decisions. Those are the issues that are driving the women's vote.
Let me just say, if you run against Cantor for Speaker, I'll endorse you, okay? But I
I'm
think
not sure that would be very helpful.
I think it wouldn't help you, but it would be fun. Let me just tell you this. I think you've got a weak case here because I think a lot of these right-wing social activists get elected on the tax issue, right, Governor? They win on lower taxes and less government, and the minute they get into office, they push this screaming right-wing social agenda that never got elected in the first place. The Tea Party movement of 2010, Congresswoman, had nothing to do with all this abortion and contraception stuff.
No, it didn't.
Contraception.
Right.
Well, why are you guys all pushing it?
I'm in Congress. We are talking about jobs, the economy, what it's going to take to get Americans back to work. That's the debate that we're having.
Well, the Republicans in a Senate committee just voted against reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act, a very common sense measure that helps protect women. There are reasons why women are paying attention to these issues right now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You come from a great family.
Thanks.
I hate to sound like an old guy, but your father's great, too. That's what they always say to people. I knew your father, but the fact is Paul Simon was great. Thank you, Congresswoman, for coming on Hardball. You don't know how much it means to me to have you on the show, to meet a new, brilliant talent on the Republican leadership ladder. I think you're on that ladder. Anyway, up next, thank you, Governor.
Thank you.
Up next,